Hello everybody and welcome to the new Mindscape. In this video I'm going to talk about stages of moral development. We all know that religion teaches people to be good, and I already discussed the different conceptions of human nature that exist in the different religious traditions. But the relationship between religion and ethics isn't a simple one. Research has shown that we have the natural capacity to act morally or not, and to make moral judgments regardless of religion. So the question then is, can spirituality and religion strengthen or reinforce our natural moral instincts? Can they restrict our selfish instincts? So, what role can spirituality and religion play in our moral development? And in this discussion, I'm going to rely on the theory of moral development of the psychologist Lawrence Kohlberg. And according to him, humans go through 7 stages, or they can potentially go through 7 stages of moral development. And actually these 7 stages are actually different substages of 3 major stages plus 1 final stage. And so I'm going to tell you a little bit about that the first stage, or the first level, is what he calls the pre-conventional stage, which is either obedience and punishment driven or self-interest driven. So this is the pre-conventional stage. And then there's the conventional stage of moral development, which is really about conforming to what others want you to do, or simply following authority and rules. So that's the conventional stage of moral development. And the third stage is post-conventional. And this is where there is a critical view on social conventions and following ethical principles, sometimes to go against social conventions. And the final stage is what he called the stage of transcendental morality, or the morality of cosmic orientation, which is really motivated by universal love. So really trying to be good out of the goodness of your own heart. So Kohlberg's basic idea was that as human beings grow up, they grow through different stages of moral development. As babies, as little children, as older children, adolescents, and adults, we have a different kind of moral thinking at these different stages of life. We have different ways of understanding morality in these different stages of life. Now, of course, you could always quibble with these different stages and so on, and we don't necessarily go through everything in the same order and so on. But actually, I think Kohlberg does describe different types of morality quite well. So he talked about pre-conventional, conventional, and post-conventional morality. And that's really interesting. So I'm going to go through them one by one to tell you a little bit more about each one of them. So the pre-conventional level refers to a condition where we don't really care much about social conventions. We don't even necessarily understand a lot about social conventions, but we are concerned primarily about ourselves. So in this stage, which is really like the stage of a very young child, a very, very young child, we might act morally in order to avoid punishment or to get rewards. So, for example, what is right or wrong is determined by what is punishable. So moral action at this stage is essentially to avoid punishment. So, for example, little children can't understand why they should act in certain ways. So we often train little children by means of punishment because they don't yet know how to reason morally. And this is also the way that we train animals like horses and dogs, through reward and punishment. And so this is a kind of morality where you don't really think anything you don't really understand or think about morality. You just do what you need to do to avoid being punished. And actually, you can also find this in religion. So, for example, the idea that if you do good, God will reward you, and if you do bad, God will punish you. So the purpose to be moral is simply to avoid these punishments. And in terms of religion, the idea is, well, we should be good in this world simply to avoid going to hell. I mean, I don't know why I shouldn't do this, but I'm afraid of going to hell, so I won't do this thing. So this is a pretty basic understanding of morality in general, and also a basic understanding of morality in religion. But then, according to Kohlberg, if we advance a little further in moral development, we have a morality that's driven by self-interest. So here, what's right or wrong is driven by what brings rewards. So other people, and you actually start thinking about other people and what they want, but only in a reciprocal sense, in order to obtain a reward from another person. So this is kind of like the Chinese idea of guanxi, or the Chinese way of using connections, well, which kind of actually exists everywhere. So in this idea that you do something for somebody, you're good to somebody, but in your mind you're doing that because you expect that person to do something back for you. So in a sense, this is self-interest driven morality. You're good to others, but this goodness is driven by your self-interest. So you're trying to seek some benefit from the people that you're being good to. And we also see this in religion. So, for example, when people go to a temple, whether it's a Wang Daixin temple or Guanyin temple, they actually often try to make a bargain with the god. They say, well, I'm going to buy this incense and worship you and give a donation to your temple, so give me what I want. And if you give me what I want, then I'll give more donation to your temple. So it's a kind of a give and take. So first I offer a gift to the god, like burning incense, donating money, offering animal sacrifices, and so on, but I'm giving that in the hope of receiving something in return. I want the god to make me healthy or rich, or to give me a good grade, or to succeed in a business deal. And if the prayer is answered, if you actually get a good grade, or you make a big profit in your business, so then, well, you've promised the god that you would bring more gifts in return. So this is a self-interest driven, transactional relationship. You're being good to the person or to the god because you want something in return from that person or from that god. So this is part of what Kohlberg calls pre-conventional morality. Why do we call it pre-conventional? Because it's self-interested morality. You're being moral simply because you're afraid of punishment or because you expect a reward from somebody. So now let's consider the conventional stage. This is the stage in which being moral means to follow the expectations of the collective group. So what the majority thinks is morally right is right by definition. So, for example, a few years ago, a student mentioned in class the example of giving our seats to the elderly or to pregnant people on the metro. So this student said that this belongs to conventional morality because we assume that as teenagers, we're healthier, so that we should help people who need our seats. But he said that actually we do this not because we want to, but because we feel a certain amount of social pressure. So when I see an elderly person standing there, I don't want to stand up and give my seat to this person. I really want to keep this seat. However, if I don't stand up, everybody's going to look at me as if they're saying, "Who do you think you are? You're so selfish. Don't you care about others?" And because I don't want anybody to look at me like that, I'm going to stand up and be a good person. So this is morality following social convention. It's simply doing what everybody in this society or culture considers to be moral. These are the things that you have to do, because if you don't do them, people will think that you're a bad person or a selfish person. But in your heart, maybe you don't want to do these things at all. Maybe most people don't want to do these things, but most people do it because that's the convention. There might be hypocrisy in this kind of activity. But at the same time, conventional morality does work for enforcing certain norms so that the elderly can count on having a seat, even if most people are secretly not willing to give them a seat. And another example is public charity. Everybody thinks that it's good, and a lot of people do it because it makes them look good. People do charity because it's what's expected, rather than what they want to do. A lot of companies do it simply for public relations. And we also see conventional morality operating in religion. So, for example, there are people who go to church even though they don't really believe in God or in the church teachings. But in terms of social tradition and convention, in this neighborhood, village, or family, everybody considers that a good person will go to church. And so because of that, if you're following conventional morality, you'll go to church, even though you don't really want to. So on Sundays at church, people might be dressing up their Sunday best, looking elegant, polite, civilized, and kind. But as soon as they go out of the church, who knows what they're up to in the rest of their life. Or another example you can see in some Muslim countries, everybody prays outside whenever there's a call to prayer. Many of these people in their minds are not thinking about their prayer at all. But if they want to be seen as good people, they need to publicly show that they're pious. And so all these are examples of conventional morality. That's really being a moral person simply out of convention. In conventional morality, being a good person consists in doing one's duty, showing respect for authority, and maintaining the social order. Unquestioning acceptance of authority is considered to be the moral thing to do. This is something we see very much in traditional societies and traditional religious communities. And finally, let's look now at post-conventional morality. So this is a kind of morality that's actually critical of social convention and doesn't necessarily follow social convention. And in fact, it might even consider social convention to be hypocritical or immoral. The idea of this stage is that moral action is driven by your inner conscience. And your inner conscience might not be in agreement with public opinion or with the law. People at this stage might actually consider that the convention is immoral. They might think that society is hypocritical, as many social customs or social conventions are morally wrong, harming people. And that could include religious customs and conventions. So, at this stage, people follow their own conscience, trying to apply universal ethical principles. They follow these principles because they believe that these principles are right, and we should do what is right. It's not because I want to have a kind of give and take agreement with people, or a way to negotiate my self-interests with people, or because I want to avoid some kind of punishment. No, it's because I have a deep conviction that, for example, equality or justice is right and it must be upheld. It's right not because other people think it's right and not because it brings me benefits, but simply because it's right, and so I'm going to do something about it. So, for example, I might believe that justice and freedom are right, and so I'm going to fight for that because I firmly believe in it. I don't do it because other people want me to respect justice or freedom. I follow these principles even when people disagree with me. So this is no longer conventional morality. It's not about following conventions, and it may even be about breaking them. Now, later, Kohlberg added an additional stage, which he called transcendental morality, or the morality of cosmic orientation. And here he realized that there's another stage, which is deeply spiritual and even deeply religious. And here the reason for being moral is not that people believe in abstract principles of justice, equality, or freedom, but that people have an inner love for all humans or for all human beings. He called this agape. This is the inner feeling that makes you suffer when other people suffer, and that gives you joy when other people are joyful. It comes from inside your heart. It's an expression of love and compassion for all of humanity, and even all of creation. And this is the kind of morality that we find in the teachings of these figures such as Confucius, Buddha, Jesus, Muhammad, and Baha'u'llah. These teachings of these great religious figures tried to bring humanity to that transcendental level of morality.